Hi, everybody, and welcome to Literacy Innovations, the Movement. Today, I'm going to read a book. I'm not reading the book just for the sole purpose of reading a book. I'm reading the book to model some of the strategies that I suggested that you try with your learners. So today I'm going to read Grace Goes to Washington. So the first thing I would like you to do is discuss the picture with your learner. You can talk about how they have on the hats and everything and why they think she's going to Washington. They may not know, but chances are you may get a lot of good dialogue right here. Now, when you open up the book, we have the branches of government here. So you might want to talk about that. It says checks and balances, legislative, executive, and judicial. So you may want to talk about what these means because it gives us a little bit. It says judicial, Supreme Court, legislative, approves federal judges, can declare laws unconstitutional, Congress, Senate, and House of Representatives. So it shows you how they all work together in a cycle. So these are things that you can go over with your learner. I know you can't see the book real well, but you'll be able to get a sense of what I'm saying and what I'm recommending. Grace Goes to Washington. One Friday afternoon in April, Mrs. Barrington shared a large diagram of the three branches of the U.S. government. But Grace Campbell could not stop daydreaming about the upcoming field trip to Washington, D.C. Grace, do you know who's in charge here? Mrs. Barrington asked. Who's in charge here? Grace repeated. Principal Perez? A few of her classmates giggled. Then you could talk about why do you think the classmates giggled? Why was it funny what Grace said? Well, said Mrs. Barrington, I suppose you could say Principal Perez is like the executive branch here at Wilson Elementary because she's the head of our school. But right now we're talking about the U.S. government. Sorry, Grace answered. The president, he or she, leads the executive branch. That's correct, Mrs. Barrington smiled. The president. The last bell of the day rang. We'll discuss this more next week, she announced. Student council members Grace and Sam, don't forget you have a meeting after school. So you can talk about that. You may want to talk about the United States map that's on the teacher's desk. Any of that, just anything to create dialogue with your learner and make sure that they're understanding what's going on. At the meeting, classroom representatives were discussing their ideas on how to spend the money raised from their holiday bake sale. Thomas and his committee petitioned for new sports equipment. Grace and her committee thought new books for the library was the way to go. Principal Perez even offered her own suggestions. The music room could use some new instruments. Mr. Marshall, the media center teacher, listened carefully to all the arguments and took notes. So again, the pictures here go along with what the words suggested. So you see right here the poster about the body and mind being healthy. Here is the poster about the bake sale. Here is still about the heart and the mind. Here's talking about the books. So again, we can use these pictures to help enhance the comprehension of what the learners are reading. And then also petitioned. That could be a vocabulary where you may want to ask your learners, what does it mean to petition? Or what does it mean that they petitioned? So then that brings in the vocabulary piece of it. They're all good ideas, Grace later admitted to Sam. There's no way we'll agree before the vote next week. You know what I was thinking during the meeting? Sam asked. No. What? If Principal Perez is like the executive branch, I think the student council is kind of like the legislative branch because we're the elected leaders from each class and we help make decisions for the school. Grace considered Sam's comparison. Yeah. Who knew so many people had a say in how to spend cookie money? She grumbled. What does that mean? And why did she grumble? That's another thing you could talk about with your learners. See how educational this could be? Now, this is just a book and we don't have to do too much extra, but we can just make sure that they're paying attention because these are the type of things that they're responsible for doing at school. The following day, Grace could hardly contain her excitement. It was finally field trip day. As the bus drove down Pennsylvania Avenue, cherry blossoms dotted the streets like pink pom-poms. So you can ask them, what's special about Pennsylvania Avenue? They may know that the White House is there, but then again, they may not. So we can discuss this picture. Ask them, have they ever seen this? The picture of the Lincoln Memorial. Grace and her classmates visited the Lincoln Memorial, the U.S. Capitol, where the legislative branch meets. So again, they're getting a lot about what actually goes on. And the Supreme Court. That's where you'll find the judicial branch, the Supreme Court judges, as Sam pointed out. They decide if our rules and laws are fair. Kind of like Mr. Marshall does our school student council meetings, Grace added. Now look at this. You can ask them what this is. Have they ever seen this before on TV? As this is an election year, they've probably witnessed this room before on TV. During a tour of the White House, home of the executive branch, Grace's dream of becoming president felt more real. So, now we know that Grace wants to be a president. We just figured this out. Now we know why she was so excited about the trip. Their final stop of the day was the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. Grace studied the words engraved on the monument and thought about their meaning. Make a career of humanity. Commit yourself to the noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a greater person of yourself, a greater nation of your country, and a finer world to live in. So again, this is the Dr. Martin Luther King Monument Memorial there. And so you can talk about that. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of the book, but as I can tell, you get a gist of what you can do. So you can just discuss the different things that are happening. So we've used the pictures. We've talked about things that are in real life, like the Lincoln Memorial, the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. We've spoken about the branches of government and so on and so forth. So these are just some of the things that you can do with your learners as you are having them to engage with text. As I stated before, it's good for them to read. Of course, we want them reading, but we also want them comprehending. It is very important that they understand what they read. They must be able to generate questions. They must be able to answer questions. They must be able to use evidence. So that's what we need to do. Learners start being responsible for these things in kindergarten. So we can't wait till their first, second, third grade. We need to start now. And so this will also help decrease the 30 million word gap. This will also help increase their vocabulary. And so doing these type of things will curb the need to have to remediate, because your learners will be on task, because your learners will have great strategies to use as they're trying to unpack and to understand text. So that's all I have for you today. So I hope you enjoyed this. I didn't want to read the entire book because I'm sure that you got the gist of it by now. If you have any questions, feel free to always reach out to me. literacyinnovations@yahoo.com, Literacy LLC, Literacy Innovations LLC on Facebook, Literacy Innovations on Instagram. As usual, have a great day. Stay safe. And if I could be of service to you, reach out to me. I'm always available. Thank you. Have a nice day.